entering the Mayo experience.
That Mayo experience. That Mayo experience. That Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to another edition of the Dog or Pass podcast. This for UFC Fight Night Fortaleza from Fortaleza, Brazil. Not the greatest offering, top to bottom, on the cards. Probably about like 7-8 fights people are maybe interested in, and then a bunch of other filler. But hey, it is what it is. I think we're gonna have some really good cards moving forward with the new ESPN deal. But this is still a bit of a transitionary time. Cody Saftic's here, though.
Yeah, it's so funny. People are so picky. Just like you said, no, this is a junk card, man. Oh, there's only like 8 good fights, and people are still saying it's a junk card. It features legends such as Jose Aldo, Damian Maia, at one time Thiago Alves, fan favorites Charles Oliveira, up-and-comers Renato Moicano, obviously Marlon Moraes versus Rafael Assuncao, all Brazilian affair in the main event. Like, what's not good about this card? Oh, yeah. The fights that aren't good are like really bad. It's not just like it's like filler cranberry sauce. Everybody knows Paul Shaughnessy's big cranberry sauce theory. There's a lot of cranberry sauce on the said card. So let's dive into it. This might be a rather quick episode because we got trains to catch and people to see. And this card might be the type of one that you might not want to talk about for all that long. So let's get into it.
Before we get to all of that, we have winners from the last one. Last week's winner is Codeman0831. That's not
it was not me. No,
it's not this code,
me.
man. It's a different code, man. So congratulations to you. I imagine you probably have 20, I almost said 80. $20 DK bucks in your account. This week's contest, number 1, give the episode a like. Nothing is possible without giving the episode a like. Leave your DK handle and tell us who your favorite Brazilian on the card is.
There's a ton of Brazilians.
We're running out of good contest ideas here, guys.
But still, there's a lot of Brazilians, and there's a lot of Brazilian fan favorites on the card. So this is an easy contest to win. Just say who your favorite Brazilian is, obviously, with your DK handle, a like of the show, and you could be the next one to win free DK bucks.
And I have one last thing to promote, I suppose, moving forward. And it's a proposition for you. I've already paid my entry into the season-long MMA Ironman run by the DFS sniper on Twitter. His name's Sean has. So it's basically a year-long contest. I've already paid for it. I wanted to know if you wanted to buy in on the action. We run this together.
Yeah,
we run this team together.
Yeah, we'll run it as
we run the competition into the ground. And it's all of our money. So yeah, contact Sean. It's at the DFS Sniper. He's got his Venmo account that you send the money to. I think I sent to a PayPal, but yeah, it should be super, super fun. This is a new league that's taking over for the previous league. I'm not gonna get into what happened with that other league, but
we don't have enough time in the day, Paul.
It's not my place, I suppose, to get too deep into it. But Sean is a good guy. DFS Sniper on Twitter. Get into it. Come attack me and Cody. Come take mine and Cody's money. It's gonna be tough though, because we'll coordinate the lineups. Like I don't know how this is gonna work, because sometimes we're gonna disagree on certain.
It'll have to be teamwork.
It's gonna be teamwork, and obviously we can't give the lineups out on this show. But like what I was thinking is that the following week, maybe at the end of the episode, we can kind of go through the lineup that we submitted to that league and see where we went wrong and what we can improve on and where we went really right, and then brag and tell people that we're better than them. It'll be great times.
I don't want to do that, but yeah, no, I'd like to start doing a Monday show as well where we just recap events, and we can obviously talk about that. But obviously we need the fan support, so if you'd like to see more of Bookie Beatdown / Dogger Pass podcast, yeah, let us know, and potentially we'll do more in the future. But for the time being, we are in Fortaleza, Brazil, Paul.
Yes, sir. And hit me up on Twitter if you didn't really follow the instructions there for how to get into this season long. Like, we want to make this thing big. I think there's already 50 people in it, but like, it doesn't start until next week's cards. So you have a week. You have a week to get into it, basically, right now. Let's get into it. We have UFC Fortaleza. We have Marlon Moraes taking on Rafael Assuncao. Marlon Moraes, 8,800 on DraftKings, -165 favor. Rafael Assuncao, 7,400 and +145. These guys have obviously fought against each other before. It was Marlon Moraes' first fight in the UFC. A hell of a tough fight against probably the most underrated, underappreciated guy, I would say, at least in the lighter weight classes, in Rafael Assuncao. Assuncao won by split decision. The guy fights close fights against everyone. He's lost to TJ Dillashaw, but he had beaten TJ Dillashaw beforehand. Like, when you look through this guy's records, it's like he may not be fighting the best guys all the time, but it's like he gives everybody a tough fight. So like this is a close fight, and I know 8,800 because we've seen Moraes, like he finished Aljamain Sterling early on, and you know, he's got obviously a little bit more hype. He's got
the Jimmy Rivera fight was what sold me anyways.
He may have a better manager who manages to get his fighters
best
into
manager
big
in the
fights.
game.
He
Love
really
him or hate
is.
him, the best manager
100%.
in the game, man.
100%. And 8,800 on DK. It is a 5-round fight. So if you see these guys go into war for 5 rounds, maybe Marlon Moraes pays it out. But like Rafael Assuncao, unless you see him getting knocked out early on in the fight, like an Aljamain Sterling from Marlon Moraes, which that's not usually Marlon Moraes like go-to. He's not a first-round finisher primarily, right?
Wow,
like,
you look at what he did to Jimmy Rivera and Aljamain Sterling,
like,
and how could you say he's not a quick finisher, right?
Well, when you go back to his World Series of Fighting days, like that wasn't his MO.
This is MMA, and times change, right?
Sure, and maybe he's found it. Maybe he's figured out that how to finish guys early, and like maybe that's what we're gonna see a lot of moving forward. People don't just go out there and finish Rafael Assuncao, though.
Yeah, fair enough. I look back to last week's fights, though, with Henry Cejudo. It's like, this man's not a power puncher. And all of a sudden, he come out of left field. You know, he has got a great manager, too, by the way. It's just like, how did he land that shot? Now, you can say all the things in the world about TJ Dillashaw, but at the same time, it's like, you can look on paper and make the assumption that Henry Cejudo is not a power puncher, but like, this is MMA. This is 4-ounce gloves. You're punching and kicking in the head. This is sometimes what happens. So, not only could I see Marlon Moraes finishing Assuncao early, Assuncao, the last time they fought, he busted Marlon early. Josh Hill busted Marlon early. You can get to Marlon early because, you know, traditionally, like you're saying, he was kind of known as a slow starter. Both guys are capable of getting that finish, but I got to think logic dictates it's probably going to go into those later rounds. And because of that reason, I got to go with Marlon Moraes. The last time around, I think Assuncao got a bit of a quick start on him. You got to realize that that's Marlon Moraes, used to 5-round fights in World Series of Fighting, where he's probably training to pace himself for said 5-round fights, making his UFC debut, bright lights, against a very tough top 3, maybe top 5 guy in the division, perennial gatekeeper for the top guys in the weight class. That's a tough outing for your first fight in the UFC. He loses, I think he's losing early on, but as he gets to round 3, I think that's where you see Assuncao start to slow down, and Marlon, with all the world championship experience of going into those later rounds, picks it up. That'll be the difference maker here. If it's the same fight up until rounds 3, then by 4 and 5, Marlon Moraes should be able to kick up that extra gear that we've seen through him in the past. Rafael Assuncao's 36 years old, man. He's no spring chicken. He's getting older by the day. The last time around they fought, he was 34, but that's a big difference in the sport, Paul. So you see him getting a little bit more fatigued. 34 years old, Rafael Assuncao. Now 36-year-old. Once you take him into those deep waters, and he's not exactly known for his quick finishes, so I have to assume he's going to have to take it to the deep waters himself if he wants to win this fight. He's going to have to go somewhere that we haven't seen. Another thing I found very interesting is when you consider that he won that fight on that night against Marlon Moraes. He got the split decision. His next fight after beating Marlon Moraes was a non-contender in Matthew Lopez. Took him 3 rounds. He took out Matthew Lopez. Then he beats Rob Font. Rob Font, I believe, right now is ranked number 10. You look at Marlon Moraes, he lost that fight. He got the Aljamain Sterling fight.
He got the John
Dodson fight. He got the Jimmy Rivera fight. All 3 of those guys are ranked higher than Rob Font. You know what I mean?
Dodson may have beaten him.
Yeah, he may have beaten him. And Aljamain Sterling may have beaten Rafael Assuncao. Like, split decisions are close in the sport. It's just the way it goes. If you want to go MMA math, then you can say, oh, geez, Sterling lasted a minute against Moraes and got potentially robbed on a split decision against Assuncao. But obviously, you can't take that stuff into consideration. So to wrap it up quickly, I honestly just think that Marlon Moraes is the fresher fighter, even though he's got a lot of wear and tear on his body, and he himself is no spring chicken. He's in his prime right now. He's at the peak right now. You're seeing the best performances out of Marlon Moraes. If he finishes him quick, he's capable of doing that. We've seen that. If it goes 5 rounds, he's capable of doing that. We've seen that. He should be able to put on that pressure. $8,800 is... It's pricey when I look at the fact that Marlon's not the biggest volume puncher. He typically is landing 40, 50 significant strikes per fight. He's not going to get a takedown game going against Assuncao.
A lot of those are 3-round fights, at least in his more... his UFC.
Right.
tenure.
But the last time they fought, he went 0 for 2 on takedowns. It wasn't really part of his game, nor could he get the fight to the ground. This time around, I don't see the fight hitting the ground. It's going to be a stand-up battle. If he lands 60, 70 significant strikes, no knockdowns, no ground transitions, no takedowns, the 8,800 is too much.
Exactly.
But if it goes 5 rounds and he's able to put on some type of pace and maybe get that finish, it could be worth it. Minus 165, I like Marlon Moraes. $8,800 on DraftKings, I think I'm going to go a different route.
Yeah. I understand where you're coming from there. Like, I was thinking Assuncao the better DK play at 74, just because
he's not a high score, but $7,400 is a great
rounds
price
to work
tag.
with.
And he's no slouch. Like, he's
No.
Rafael Assuncao. He is more than proven. I just mean, in the later years of his career, he seems to be fighting mid-level competition, whereas Moraes has really ascended the sport to be one of the big stars at 135 right now.
We have Renato Moicano taking on Jose Aldo. Renato Moicano, 8,300 on DraftKings, -140 favorite. Aldo is 7,900 and +120. Kind of a passing of the torch opportunity. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But you got,
He'll have to steal the torch.
You
but,
know, you have the featherweight Brazilian king
Yeah.
for so many years. And now they've got Renato Moicano, who seems to be the best young Brazilian at 145 pounds. And they're matching them up against each other. And I think it's going to be a hell of a fight. And I can't really judge anybody for thinking a certain way. Aldo's been talking about how he doesn't really think he's going to try to chase down any titles anymore. So, like, you know that retirement has kind of been kicking around in this guy's brain for a year or two. Didn't matter against Jeremy Stevens in his last time out, but he was really eating some bombs from him, too.
I think his words are somewhat lost in translation. The only way I say that is he's got a contract with the UFC right now. I believe it's 2 more fights. And he's very adamant that I signed that contract. I'm a man of my word. I will fight out my contract. But he wants to box. He wants to go to pro boxing. I think he was really turned on by the McGregor thing and thought, hey, you know what? He kind of came in with a kickboxing background, but his hands have always been good. He's not going to be a good pro boxer, but he'd like to do pro boxing because he has a big name. Probably get a couple paydays, but that's why he doesn't want the title. He doesn't want the title because then he gets a championship clause. Whereas if you're the champion, your contract rolls over until you lose the belt.
He doesn't want to be trapped.
Yeah. And if I was getting ready to leave this career in which I've taken a lot of wear and tear to go into another career that's going to require some more wear and tear, I'm not looking to fight 5 rounders for the hell of it on my way out. So I'm not fighting Moicano for 5. I'll fight him for 3. Everyone says, like, it worked out for him last time against Stevens. It's like, not really. The fight ended in 1 round. It's not as if he won the first 2 and lost the 3rd round. And it was like, damn, good thing he was fighting at 3. It was just a quick finish. Aldo's still got the power. Aldo could still be a quick finisher. It's when we see the fight starting to go later is where he's starting to...
Round 3, Max.
Yeah. But you know what? Max Holloway and Conor McGregor, and like, those are elite guys to be losing to. So it's very difficult to say he's shot because it's like, he doesn't look good against the absolute best in the world. But now the consideration has to be, well, how good really is Renato Moicano? Because a lot of people think he's one of the best in the world. And if that's the case, round 1 will be competitive, but rounds 2 and 3, Moicano should beat him on volume. And, you know, we always talk about the legendary leg kicks of Aldo, but like, that's gone. He doesn't really throw that big leg kick anymore. Against Stevens, you know, you could say tailor-made fight for him. A guy with no reach, a guy that doesn't really fight on the inside, and a guy that's going to come get you and feel your power in order to land his power, and you don't want to feel Aldo's power. If you want to play that outside stick and move game, which Renato Moicano does brilliantly, it's going to give Aldo problems. So I'm a little bit worried that this is going to be a close fight. Moicano might do what he did when he fought Jeremy Stevens, which is backpedal the whole time, and the crowd will boo, and Aldo will land 1 or 2 shitty strikes here and there, and the crowd will cheer, and it'll go to decision, and he might get the decision. So $7,900, you could definitely take a shot on Jose Aldo. But my straight up pick is, I do believe that, like you said, it's a passing of the torch moment. And even though you're going to have to take that torch from Jose Aldo, I really like Renato Moicano, you know? And I think he's...
They both like to really utilize those leg kicks, stand-up specialists.
Yeah, different type of leg kick. You know, one's just chopping the tree down, big power kick, and the other one is, you know, score points and slow you down and manage the distance. But Moicano is the development of the sport, right? He's what the sport's turning to, and Jose Aldo represents what the sport used to be. Jose Aldo, too, I don't want to take flack on this, but deservedly so. Maybe I'll take flack on this. I don't think he's as great of a champion as everybody makes him out to be. He's a legend. He's a Hall of Famer. You know, is he one of the best ever to do it at his weight class? Sure, but not in general. I think he's the beneficiary of every lackluster division. You know, he fought guys like Mark Hominick in world title fights and Korean Zombie in world title fights. He had scheduled fights against guys like Josh Grisby and Eric Koch. Do you remember those fights? They never happened because Aldo pulled out, but it's like there was nobody really in that division to test him. The 2 fights with Mendez, you could arguably say that he cheated the first time when he grabbed the fence, and the second time around was a great fight, and that might have been like the last hurrah for him. The Stevens fight, in many regards, it's like, damn, he's back, but like, is he back? You know, he's been around a long time. Now that future generation is Moicano. This guy's, you know, he's a little bit faster. He's a little bit more mobile. He doesn't have near the experience of Jose Aldo, But, you know, if it is a passing of the torch moment, you want the young buck. Young buck for minus 140, appealing. You could take either guy in DraftKings. You know, if your team MOICANO, $8,300 is a good price tag.
Yep.
Should be a banger for as long as it lasts. And I think it'll go to 15. And if you like Jose Aldo, how could you pass up the 7,900? Again, great price tag. And he's a dog against this unheralded young up-and-comer that casual fans certainly don't know who the hell this guy is. So, you know, it's interesting, but my pick's got to be MOICANO. What's your official pick? I'm interesting because MOICANO is your guy. Like, you were the first guy. You picked him over Zubaira Tukhugov. I never understood that, you know, and he won. So it was like, this is your guy. Are you picking him here? This is a big test.
I'm picking him here.
You are? Okay.
I'm picking him here, but I don't feel great about it.
Sure.
Like, Aldo's been in there with everybody, and, you know, MOICANO was doing really, really well against Ortega up until he wasn't, but that's generally what happens against Ortega. Unless you're Max Holloway and you absolutely butcher him. It's tough, man. I see them pretty similar in terms of their styles, and Aldo's been in there with a lot more people, but it's also, if he has 2 fights left and he's thinking about moving on, like, you don't want to be in there with somebody who's going to be in the top 5 of this division for years to come.
Right.
When you're not fully invested in it. So it'll be interesting to see how Aldo shows up. Official pick is MOICANO here. On DraftKings, I don't know if you need to have that fight, though. I could see it being a little bit of a chess match on the feet. But we'll see how it plays out. We have Demian Maia taking on Lyman Good. Demian Maia is 9,400 on DraftKings, minus 175 favorite. Lyman Good Demian Maia is 8,700, and Lyman Good is 7,500 and plus 155. My bad, I wrote that wrong on the sheet that I read.
No worries.
I was talking with our producer Chad, before we got on the air here, and he was talking up Lyman Good here, and just like, but what if he gets taken down?
Oh yeah, of course.
Because Demian Maia takes down everybody. I've never seen, except for Tyron Woodley.
No.
I think it was like 9 fights in a row that he had secured at least 1 takedown against.
Right, but this is late 30s. Late 30s, Demian Maia took everybody down. 40s, Demian Maia has been struggling mightily at taking people down.
Because they've been matching up against wrestlers.
That's fair.
Demian
Lyman
Maia,
Good is a brick shithouse for at least 1, maybe 1.5 rounds.
The guy does, like, he looks like a freaking Street Fighter character. Like when you look at like his full face board here, like the full board, the matchup boards, like look at that.
Well,
like,
that doesn't do it justice when you see like his body
without his
like,
body, but like look at even
God.
his chin. Like the guy that looks like a freaking video game character. Demian Maia though, it's just he gets in, he gets that body lock, and then he's chain wrestling. He's like, I've never seen somebody whose wrestling has improved so much. Like, this is a guy who used to like flop to his back, try to pull guard, and then like over time he got so good at improving his ability to get the fight to the ground. Like, he gets everybody to the ground that's not a bona fide all-American level wrestler. And so I see him getting the takedown here. Once he gets on top, he'll just be passing to mount because it's like a hot knife through butter with this guy. If he gets on top of you, it's like the LaFleur fight where it's just like within like 2 moves, it's just like, well, he advanced to half and he advanced to mount and he's just there. Or maybe it was the Gunnar Nelson fight.
Dude, it was all the Alexander Yakovlev fight. Like, it's just like he floats to mount when he pleases to have mount. What are your options? Give up your back, which we've seen guys like Carlos Condit and Rick Story do. Not a good option.
That adds
or you
up,
stay
bro.
flat and he doesn't have great
adds
ground
up.
and pound,
In DraftKings scoring, that adds up
damn right
like
it does.
crazy.
Damn right.
Even if the Lyman Good doesn't get up. It's like, and if this thing goes 3 rounds and it's just, the problem is that he doesn't really have that kill. He'll get to mount and it's just like he won't go for that finish, but I feel as though Lyman Good will wilter underneath it. Demian Maia, everyone is ready to kind of put him away, to say, oh, he's done, he's too old. I think he pulls it off here. I think he gets a submission victory either first or second round.
Yeah, Demian Maia, listen, at 41 years old, the argument is certainly there that his best years are behind him. I don't think he's shot, but again, we're seeing a different version of Demian Maia than we're accustomed to. But yeah, Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington, and Tyron Woodley, the 3 best wrestlers in the division, guys that do not get taken down. And those are the 3 guys that he fought in a row. Also, the number 1, 2, 3 guys in the division.
Literally the worst 3 matchups he has.
Yeah, the top 3 guys at the weight class. Yeah, his only game is get the fight to the ground, something that he's unable to do. And he still manages to go the distance with all 3 of those guys. And they're all vaunted for, man, Woodley's got big power. Oh, Usman's been working so hard. Oh, Colby just grinds you away. It's like, you know, Damian Maia is Damian Maia. I think he's going to struggle early against Lyman Good just because Lyman Good's built super powerfully. And I don't know how Damian Maia's entries, he's got good entries. He always has, but he's got to drive through in a big, strong guy like Lyman Good, who could fight easily at 185 pounds, you know, makes 170. He's a big, thick guy. It's going to be tough early, but yeah, he's just going to make him work, hopefully, and tire him out. If he can't take him down early, he's got to rely on his striking. And his striking's not bad, but it's got no power. It lacks power, absolutely. So if he gets into a striking battle with Lyman Good, I do worry. But he was forced to get into striking battles with better men than Lyman Good, and he lived to tell the tale. He is a legend in every sense of the word. I think he's, you know, the real deal. Again, at 41, you're not going to get the best version of him, but I see this fight truly as he comes in, he shoots a couple early takedowns, and Lyman Good stuffs them. He uses that jab, he uses that wild right hand, he just keeps going on those entries, and like you said, eventually he's going to get a rear waist lock, eventually he's going to get some type of underhooks on him. I don't see him pulling guard, but like, he's fought in just the creme de la creme of the sport, and even at 41,
Lyman Good doesn't have anything he's never seen before.
No, Lyman Good won the Bellator title and then failed to get onto the Ultimate Fighter, dropping a decision to Ian Stevens. So there's levels to this shit, and give me the old stud colt who's on his way out instead of the young buck who never really reached his potential. So I'll take one last hurrah on Damian Maia, and hopefully he snaps that 3-fight losing streak.
Moving on down the card, we have Charles Oliveira taking on David TEYMUR. I think I messed this up, this pricing up here as well. Well, we have Charles Oliveira minus 115. David TEYMUR is plus 105. And 8,500 for Charles Oliveira, 77 for David TEYMUR. So
this was an easy one to break down. Truly is.
So essentially, I always worry about Charles Oliveira.
If you're going for a big GPP, though, you're going to want him. 8,500 is kind of bold, but
in the $15 GPP this week, it's a little bit of a different format that you need, with like a lot of money up top. Like he's the type of guy that when he finishes, when he scores, it's phenomenal. But the problem is he doesn't really have great wrestling. A lot of times he doesn't really need that. He'll just like kind of get you up against the cage. David TEYMUR's style is designed to deal with this type of opponent, though. And that is where the big concern comes for me, for Charles Oliveira. I could see this being like a real quit spot, where TEYMUR is pretty good at fighting off his back foot, and he's going to piece him up, move away, disengage, and then eventually you get into round 2.
And then all of a sudden,
and Oliveira's just like,
I'm not exactly.
I don't want to
backing up his
I don't want to be part of this anymore. So I love Charles Oliveira. You know I love Charles Oliveira. I always love, but like I feel as though this is a bad match. This is an underrated opponent that could cause him big problems if he can't get him down early. What's your take?
Yeah, Charles Oliveira is almost kind of the same way. For the longest time, it was like literally the definition of bang or bust. He either smokes these dudes with phenomenal submissions early into the fight, or his plan doesn't, it backfires on him. It doesn't work. He has no plan B, and he wilts under the pressure. A lot of people have called him a quitter, but his last 3 fights, man, it looks like a completely different Charles Oliveira. It's crazy to see. But you just got to go back to that 4th fight, the Paul Felder fight, which is how I see this fight going. Like, Felder's one of those guys that is very durable, doesn't have many submission losses against him. In fact, a guy I don't think has ever been submitted. One of those guys that's going to be in the fight with you. Charles Oliveira likes to pour it on people, but the Irish Dragon, Paul Felder, is a durable, I was going to call him a Mick. Is that racist? You can't call somebody that, I don't think.
My family comes from Irish roots.
But if somebody called you a Mick, would you be mad?
No.
Okay,
cool.
Mad
about stuff
all right,
like that.
all right. But Felder is one tough son of a bitch. He's also from Philadelphia, to double down on it. He's going to take what Oliveira, and Oliveira's all over him, like that Darce choke is seemingly very tight, but he wilts it. And as soon as Charles Oliveira realizes that his arms are getting tired because the submission didn't work, that's the way out. I think TEYMUR is the same way. TEYMUR's shown that his takedown defense pretty good. His striking obviously better than Charles Oliveira's. I like Oliveira's striking, but it has to be just in little spurts. He has to just strike long enough to wrap you up and peel you to the ground. Wrestling's not great, but he's really strong. And if he can just rip you to the ground, then he'll use his submission game. But against TEYMUR, TEYMUR will hang by the cage. So it's going to be way tougher to peel him, and he'll just get up to a hip, lean against the cage, stand right back up. Make this guy work, make this guy quit. The $7,700 for DraftKings, I think that's a great price for David TEYMUR, because all he's really got to do is last the first, 7 or 8 minutes, and then put the pressure on this guy. He's got good power. He's a shorter guy, so again, lower center of gravity, be harder to take him down. And I think he's just going to wing these big hooks on the taller man, Charles Oliveira, hit him with something eventually, put him down. Need a dog at some point. This is my dog so far at plus 105. And again, I think the $7,700 is a fair price tag on him. Oliveira, like I mentioned earlier, if you're playing the big GPP, this guy historically could score many points. But he's a very risky player.
He has a very, very clear path to 100 points in the first round.
Yes.
He gets it up against the cage. He just grabs a limb, and then once he grabs a limb, and then he starts to be able to to jump on your back or just adjust. Like he can, on the fly, he can do so many different things. He's super dangerous.
And I hate MMA math, but this is a different version of MMA math. I don't mind because it's helped me in the past. But let's just look at his recent history, right? Smokes Lance, shits the bet against Holloway. Smokes Jury, shits the bet against Pettis. Shits the bet against Lamas. Smokes Brooks, shits the bet against Felder. Smokes Guida. Smokes Giagos. Smokes Jim Miller. You know what, Paul? He's due for a shitting. This is what he does. We always used to joke around he's a 50-50 guy. Half the time he shows up and he's phenomenal. The other half, terrible. Well, he's looked good his last 3. So old Chucky O is going to rear his ugly head at some point.
Agreed.
And I'm going to go with this one for the dog money. Give me David TEYMUR.
Moving on, we have the preeminent whiskey man in MMA, Mr. Johnny Walker, taking on Justin LEDET. Johnny Walker, 9,200 on DraftKings and a minus 210 favorite. LEDET, 7,000 and plus 175. When Johnny Walker made his debut against Khalil Roundtree, I watched tape leading up to that fight, and I was just like, this guy is doing well on top of Frankenstein, Luis Frankenstein Henrique, the old guy that, the guy with so many names that we call him Frankenstein. But it was just like he's struggling in this, and like he doesn't have great wrestling, he doesn't have great takedowns. He goes out there, he absolutely obliterates Khalil Roundtree.
Stand-up game, the only thing Khalil can do right,
for sure. But I'm still standing by I don't think Johnny Walker's actually real life good. Like I would not feel comfortable laying minus 210 on this guy. I actually LEDET at plus money. Like I think he's the better boxer. He's a better stand-up guy. And sure, Johnny Walker probably has an advantage in jiu-jitsu, getting the fight but like his ability to get to the fight to the ground is really nothing. Like this guy likes barging forward, trying to grab like a Muay Thai clinch, maybe gets a body lock, and then he's looking for a trip. Maybe he's able to pull that off against LEDET. LEDET obviously didn't look great against Rakic in his last time out.
Rakic is sneaky good, man. I've been backing that guy for a while.
We're gonna fade Rakic next time out.
Yeah,
After what happened in Toronto in his last fight, I watched that fight and I was going like you were obviously in attendance as well, and I was watching it going like, we get a good opponent versus Rakic. I saw the right opponent. I saw the holes there. I don't think Rakic is like a champion.
No,
what I'm saying. I find it hard to not play LEDET at 7,000. He's just so cheap, and it allows you to do so many things. The one thing I do concern myself with is that if he does get the win, it's probably a decision. It's like him boxing on the feet. Maybe he doesn't score very high. It may not be the best GPP type of play, just because like what's the upside with Justin LEDET? Like 75 points maybe in a decision win against Johnny Walker here. But I've been shocked the whole week. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. How is Johnny Walker such a big favorite here?
Well, Johnny Walker's a big favorite because A, the fight's in Brazil, and B, he's coming off the big win over Khalil Roundtree. And C, I mean, if you're going to look at the fight for a matchup, people look at Justin LEDET like a lazy boxer who just showed up to MMA. He seems to be super lackadaisical. If you watch any interview with him, he just doesn't give a fuck. And he showed up, and in his last fight, it kind of, sort of got the impression that like maybe he does it. Now, he was fighting at heavyweight, and he was good only because heavyweight is so bad that when you're fighting Mark Godbeer, like, you can piece him up. At 205, he noticed with Rakic, it's like 205ers are faster, 205ers are more mobile, and Rakic, I think he's a former European kickboxing champion, like, he's no slouch in the stand-up department. The thing with Johnny Walker is, like, Johnny Walker is not a former kickboxing champion. Johnny Walker is not as fast as Rakic. He's a little bit slower, he's plodding, and honestly, I play the fight in my head a lot, and I honestly feel like the way to beat Johnny Walker would just be a nice, sharp jab. Keep him on the outside and just pick him apart with the jab, get him to get desperate, tire him out, take him into rounds 2 or 3, nail him with the right hand. LEDET's not a big power puncher, but he can follow that exact game plan. We've seen him basically do it against, Chase Sherman. The guy's got a great jab. Jabs don't really knock guys out, unless you're George Foreman. But a jab doesn't really knock guy out. It sets up that bigger punch. And the thing with Johnny Walker is, I'm thinking this guy is, he needs to get a quick finish or he's going to fold apart. See, him and Khalil Roundtree is an interesting matchup because Khalil Roundtree's only got 1 round in him. And Johnny Walker might also only realistically have 1 good round in him. So they clash and he bangs him with some elbows and puts him down. But all 3 of his pro losses, he's been finished. And I think one of them was in the first round, 2 of them in the second round. We've even seen in fights of him where he gets knocked out multiple times in the same fight by punches that don't seem overly stiff. So I've got a nagging feeling that LEDET's going to hurt this guy standing. Walker's best case is get the fight to the ground. His entry's shit. He's got a good tie clinch. Maybe he could pull him down from the tie clinch. But again, that's easier said than done. And LEDET plays the part of the uninterested boxer, but the guy knows jiu-jitsu. He's got an omoplata win on his record prior to signing with the UFC. I think you could do worse. So the fact that he is the underdog and the fact that he is $7,000, I'm not necessarily playing the man. I'm playing the line. I think the line's off, and I'll have some shares of Justin LEDET.
Olivia Souza, 9,100 on DraftKings, -220 favorite. Sarah Frota, promotional newcomer, 7,100 and +180. What's your take here?
Yeah, honestly, we can get through this one quick. Livia Souza, my girl. Don't bet against this girl. I mean, if it was 105 pounds, she's the greatest in the world. At 115, she's going to run into some people eventually with some size. But, geez, man, this girl's the real deal. I mean, she's one of those fighters that comes to the UFC, and because she's only had just the 1 fight in the UFC, people aren't fully backing her. Like, she did everything you could do in Invicta. She proved that her submission game's, nasty, striking game on par. She's got a great personality. She really wants this. She's here to prove it. I think Liviana Souza should be the rightful favorite over Sarah Frota, who you got to build this girl up because A, you have a former Invicta champion who could potentially challenge for UFC gold in the next fight or 2. She's at home in Brazil. We've got a card full of old dogs like Thiago Alves, Jose Aldo, and Damian Maia. Well, that's why we need the Renato Moicanos, and that's why we need Liviana Souza. I think she's the next big thing for the weight class and certainly for fighters in Brazil anyways, and I think she could have this fight wherever she wants it. The thing is that $9,100 when you're a very light female is just very unappealing for the most part. I could see playing her in some spots because she's very versatile.
If it was a 5-round fight, different story. You give me those extra 2
story.
rounds, and we're banking some extra significant strikes.
Because
and so on
60
and so forth.
Significant strikes is now 100 significant strikes, and 2 takedowns is now 4 takedowns. It changes everything.
Agreed.
But in this case, it's like, could she go out there and get the finish? Yeah. Again, she could finish standing. She could finish on the ground. But I'm not really running to the bank to pay the $9,100 on DraftKings just because, again, I think there's some slightly better salaries. And for $220, I'm in. If she loses and it blows up in my face, it is what it is. But for the time being, I'm backing her 100%, and I expect good things from her.
Yeah, I couldn't really add anything else to that, to be perfectly honest. I see this fight the exact same way you just laid out. We got Anthony Hernandez taking on Marcus Perez. 8,900 Anthony Hernandez. Marcus Perez is 7,300. -155 Hernandez. +135 Marcus Perez. Marcus Perez is kind of a fucking goof.
I was gonna say he's a squirrely motherfucker, but you ripped him hard. I think he is squirrely. I like it. He is.
You like it?
Well, I like that. I like that. Dickie Eklund,
like
Mickey Lord's brother. He was a squirrely
he's a
fucker
goofball,
too,
man. Like he's always like, I don't know.
There's
something weird about the guy.
Like, I don't know. I like that.
There's like, is his pre-fight
It's
gimmick.
so hard to put those guys away. It seems like they're goofing off,
tough.
but they're very hard to put away because they're loose, they're lackadaisical, they're having fun with it, they roll with all the punches. It seems like they're fucking around. But guys don't go out there and play around and then get knocked out in the first round and come back out and play the next time around. That's why I have respect for this guy. I have him losing to Hernandez here, but he's durable. He's squirrely. I just don't think he's not the bigger of the two power punchers. If you're going to get into a straight up striking battle, and it's water gun bullshit. It's tic tac, get out of there. His win over Ian Hesnich in LFA, that submission, that was on point. But that was the highlight of his career, and he hasn't really shown us much since then. Losing to Eric Anders, no big deal, but Anders is super raw. Literally beat him just on strength advantage. That's it. Yeah. And his fight with Andrew Sanchez, he loses it on wrestling advantage. So now he's getting Hernandez, who probably has the same strength advantage, not as much as Anders, but has the strength advantage over him, as well as the wrestling advantage. Training out of Sacramento, not at Alpha Male, but Hernandez could be good. I think his last fight at Contender Series was a no contest because he was high. But this guy looks the part. I think 6 of his 7 wins are first round finishes. And his lone fight to go the distance, he didn't really seem like he was fatiguing. I don't see this fight being a quick finish. I see him being that ladder. But even if he banks up the first 2 rounds, tires, loses it to Perez in the 3rd round, but doesn't get finished, he'll still get the victory. The issue here is that $8,900 is a big price. Big price tag. Going to decision
if it's relatively close. We're in Brazil.
Exactly. And Perez against Eric Anders, like once he was on the bottom, yeah, he's able to survive ground and pound. Like he's not getting up, so you're not going to get multiple takedowns. And Hernandez, he's 8,900 because when you look at his recent history, it's like yeah, he finishes what 92% of his fights are first round finishes. But like this is now in the UFC. This is his official UFC debut. He's taking on a guy.
Brazil.
And Anders represents a lot of what I see in Hernandez in that he's raw, he's super strong, and if he hits you, it's game over. And Perez dealt with all of that, lost every single round, but was able to deal with all of that and nullify it, which I think he'll do here, lose a decision. Hernandez wins it, but I'm not going to pay the 8,900 certainly. Minus 155, yeah, I'll take that, but I'm not going to take 8,900.
We have Talia Santos taking on Maria Romero Borellla. Talia Santos, 8,600 on DraftKings, minus 165 favorite. Borellla is 7,600 and plus 145. Any hot takes here?
Yeah, not really. Honestly, I think
this is we've been going through the little section of the card here where it's just like,
well, I'll tell you why.
We're starting to get into the fights I don't care all that much about.
Exactly. It's just that I don't want to give anybody like a confident pick or sound like I'm on a confident pick when it's like this could go one of 2 ways. Because the biggest issue here is that Taylor Santos comes in with a 15-0 record, but it's so ballooned up.
Nobody.
Yeah, and it's really hard to get behind them because they'll have a couple good wins here and there, but for the most part, on the Contender Series, it looked like she had some good mobility, good hip movement, but she's raw, she's green. I think it's something like 2 of her 15 wins are over opponents with winning records. It's a lot of debuting fighters with 0-1, 1-2 records. I don't like it. Borellla, meanwhile, one's got to assume if she just goes in there with the game plan of take this girl down, control her. She seemingly has a better ground game. She seemingly has better wrestling. Decent little top control game to her. That's what she should do. But I have no confidence in her to actually do that. Taking on somebody with a very pretty looking record who you realistically know very little about. And so I'm sorry that there is a common theme for these next couple fights, a couple of them anyways. I'm not one to just like pass, and I'm 100% going to watch some more tape on it and get a better feel. But like, I don't want to bullshit you and be like, yeah, man, I got an angle here. I got a sharp play. It's like, I fucking don't, you know what I mean? Anything can happen. For that reason, I would probably just take dog or pass and take Borellla.
It's a dog or pass situation.
That's probably what I would be leaning towards. But
are they going to end up on a winning lineup? I don't really think so, to be perfectly honest. This is an easy fight to remove from your player pool.
You know what? But it's funny you say that because at the same time, you could have the situation where Talia Santos, really not that good, goes out there, slips to the ground, Borellla jumps on her, catches her in a rear naked choke, and she is on the winning lineup. But like, you can't sit here and predict these things with a straight face. Like, who knows what's going to happen? I don't.
We have Max Griffin taking on Thiago Alves. Max Griffin, 9,000 on DraftKings, minus 200 favorite. Thiago Alves, 7,200 plus 170. Bookie telling you that they think Thiago Alves is finally dead.
And I mean, finally dead. Thiago Alves, there's the argument that, like, he's been dead for quite some time.
Oh, for sure. The Millender fight, like, that went really, really sour real fast.
Really
like,
sour.
The guy's pretty much, like, he's got super powerful leg kicks. And that body kick that he landed the body kick on Jordan Mean.
How long ago was that, Paul?
I know, but I'm saying it's still maybe there. Like, he could probably unload one.
Yeah.
But, like, the performance that I saw from Max Griffin against Mike Perry, Like, I think Mike Perry is a better version of Thiago Alves at this point, to be perfectly honest.
You know,
and I think Matt Griffin can do exactly what he did against Mike Perry against Thiago Alves.
Okay, so
like I see him winning. I don't know what Max Griffin scored in that fight, but similar type of fight. Like, what are the dangers of the fight? You got a guy who hits pretty hard. If you can kind of maintain distance, and he showed in that fight against Mike Perry that he could maintain distance, jump in and out of the pocket, always be a little bit out of range, then he can kind of just style on him here, and that's how I see it playing out for him.
yeah, exactly. You got to make it a fight, but you need that speed to make it a fight. Aleksei dos Santos, when he fought Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, it's like, that guy's fast. So if you're going to get into a brawl with this guy, like, it's going to be very hard to get your strikes off, and then get out of the pocket. If you want to play the range game, he's going to be coming at you the whole time. That's a good, entertaining back and forth fight. But you see what power and speed can do against this guy. Mike Perry, a lot of people assume he was going to go the exact same way. Perry's got power. Perry's got speed. Perry doesn't cut angles, and he's really not all that fast. He's got all the power in the world, but that does you no good when you're giving up a significant size and reach advantage, and that's what Max Griffin's going to have over guys. Max Griffin is a full-time training partner of Hernandez, right? They're both like MMA Gold team in Sacramento. Max Griffin is every bit the same size as Anthony Hernandez. They're both 6 feet tall. They both appear to have the exact same thickness to them. Max Griffin makes 170. Hernandez doesn't look all that out of place at 185 pounds. So what I'm getting at is, like, Griffin fits it in. He's a big, long, rangy guy. And that's what Thiago Alves does not want to deal with at this point in his career. Could he fight a shorter guy, land some of those big strikes like you said? Maybe he's got that big leg kick. Maybe he's got that big body kick still. Yeah, maybe against a shorter opponent, but, you know, when he realized it's just generational thing. It's like we were talking about Jose Aldo and, like, passing of the torch. Thiago Alves came from a time where, like, 5'9" welterweights were a normal thing, but now in day and age now, he realizes he's way too small. So he does what he should have done a long time ago, make 155, only it's too late for him. So he botches the weight cut. He fights Jim Miller. Jim Miller's a small, short guy. Jim Miller outpoints this guy. But then he goes back to 170. And you know what's happened since he's gone back up to 170?
What?
You got to fight guys like Carlos Condit and Curtis Millender. And you know what both of they got in common? That they're tall, long, rangy guys who fucked up Thiago Alves. And now he's going to go out there and take on Max Griffin, who fits the exact same mold. He's not as good as Curtis Millender. He's not as good as Carlos Condit. But Thiago Alves ain't what he used to be. Now, yeah, he didn't look bad in his last fight against Alexander Konchenko, but Konchenko's not all that good. Believe me on that. I've worked all of his M1 fights. He has a very pretty record. That's pretty much about it. And I'm not looking at that as a resurgence for Thiago Alves. So I think Alves waves through, tries to get, close the pocket, tries to make this a fight, but he's going to get picked off, and he's going to get his nose broke again, and that's going to cause him to start breathing heavy, and he'll fail on himself. My last thing, and then we're going to move on, is that you look at his record when it comes to fighting tall guys. Curtis Millender, Carlos Condit, Jordan Mein. He wins the Jordan Mein fight after taking a thrashing. Tall guys seemingly have had their way with Thiago Alves because he doesn't have that big leg kick game anymore to slow them down. So without that, I think he's going to get intercepted. You can look at all the historical facts on Thiago Alves, and they're there. He's been around a long time, and he used to be the man, but he's not the man anymore, and you can't confuse that. Griffin's 33. He's not a prospect, but he should be enough to beat Thiago Alves. I don't love it personally. For $9,000, I'm not playing it. For 2-1, I'll have some small shares, but again, I don't love it. But yeah, Thiago Alves has seen better days, and last time he looked decent in a fight it wasn't the Seth Pachinski fight, by the way. It wasn't the Pepe Abidi fight. The last time he really looked good in a fight was Josh Koscheck, 2008, 11 years ago. So, do you really want to put money on him in 2019? Like, no, fuck. I see some people betting him. That's all I'm saying.
No. Let's go to the heavyweight division. We've got Junior Albini taking on Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but it's kind of a cool name.
This guy's a cool guy.
He's from Suriname, making his UFC debut. Albini is completely untrustworthy. Okay, I guess I should say 8,100 for both of these guys. Minus 120 for Albini as a slight favorite over the promotional. But yeah, Albini, after what he did against Alexei Oleinik, I am never, ever, ever going to roster this guy ever again.
It wasn't the Olenek fight. It was
He
the
is-
Arlovsky fight.
No.
No, Olenek will drag you into that
Dude,
shit. It's gonna happen.
no,
the Arlovsky
no,
fight was
no,
a clear indication
no.
of do not play this guy.
No, because he was there. What happened? So Olenek grabs him around the neck.
That's what
What does
Olenek
this
does
dummy
that.
do? He proves to everybody that he didn't watch a shred of tape. Because Olenek's done this before. He's like, oh, he freaking, like, there's a better angle where you can see that Albini has his neck locked up, face to face with him, and he freaking trips him to land on top. And then what happens? Olenek gets like his scarf choke from bottom for like the second or third time in his career. It's just like, did you watch no tape? Like, disengage when you get into that situation.
No, but
what are you even thinking?
But that's the thing is about the Ezekiel, and especially against Alex Olenek, is you don't think you're in trouble until it is far too late. Like, this is what that man does. I don't care about that fight in the slightest bit. I care entirely about the Andrei Arlovsky fight, where it's like he showed up in a diaper, shit the diaper, and proceeded to absolutely do nothing and lose the decision.
Yo, that guy's head. That guy's head, though.
He's got a little tiny head on him. Yeah.
It's very strange.
Yeah, he's got an odd shaped body.
Tell me all about Jairzinho Rozenstruik.
Yeah, well, we'll call him Biggie Boy because that's what his nickname is, and that's what American fans seem to know him at. He's basically just like a big former kickboxing guy. Like, he's not. I don't want to say he's not a world champion kickboxer. He's not a European champion kickboxer. But he's an African champion kickboxer. He's from Suriname, as you mentioned, most notable for pumping out Melvin Manhoff, my boy. But in this case, Biggie Boy's 76-6 in his pro boxing record, and I believe he has 67 wins by knockout. So there's no money in kickboxing, and there's certainly no money in heavyweight kickboxing in Suriname. So he eventually gets into MMA, and his most notable appearance would have been he fought for Ryzen at whatever their last, not their last show. Yeah, would have been. Anyways, he fights Andrei Kovalev. Now, this is a 9-1, once beaten, tough Russian fighter against Biggie Boy, who's so one-dimensional in the striking game. Then it's like, okay, the Russian guy's going to take him down and beat him. Round one, fight doesn't hit the ground. This guy's big, man. He's a big, freewheeling, throwing, heavyweight power puncher. His kickboxing record's got all the big knockouts on it. Now, when you look at him in kickboxing, he doesn't look like he's got big power, right? But when you watch him with an MMA glove on as opposed to a boxing glove, there's some big power there. So he beats Kovalev in the first round. Second round,
that was he kind of clipped him behind the ear type of thing, and then went in there killer instinct for days. Killer instinct.
So second round, Kovalev takes him down, and it's like, oh yeah, this Surinamese fighter absolutely has no resemblance of a ground game in the slightest bit. Loses the second round. Third round's back and forth. Kovalev's super tired. This guy shows a decent sprawl, to be honest. Pieces him up a little bit, ends up winning a split. I thought he won. He won a fight a couple months later, beating an unheralded bum opponent by knockout in 10 seconds. Literally, bum opponent comes in, swings an overhand right. Biggie Boy counters him, done, fight's over.
Yeah,
guy's out.
That's the fight I was thinking of.
Yeah, so he's got some big power, and especially when you're wearing those little gloves.
Albini doesn't have much of a ground game. Like, we haven't seen him utilize it, but like
his
opponent here has literally no ground game. So like that will probably be the path to victory for Albini. The one interesting thing about this fight, I don't have the odds right in front of me, but the odds for this to go to decision are actually pretty big. Like they're the books are saying that they expect this to go to decision. So that should be a big red flag.
Yeah, you know what the thing is that Albini, he's 266 pounds, and like he's a big fucking guy. And this guy, Biggie Boy, same fucking thing. So you know what? You're right. There's a good chance that this could go the distance because Albini, he doesn't. Albini's not chinny. And Albini's not chinny, and Biggie Boy, this is UFC debut. He's taking the fight on short notice, let's be honest here. So we don't really know what kind of shape he's going to be in. It's entirely possible that he gasses quick. And Albini, who might see his opponent gas, is not going to do anything. Because, that fight with Arlovsky was a real big indicator of, like, you talk about killer instinct. This guy seriously lacks killer instinct. He's got knockouts on his record because these 265 pounds. If he touches you, you go
He
out.
knocked out Timothy Johnson, and everyone everyone got really excited about that, and then he shit the bed.
Yeah,
he shit his diaper ever since.
A lot of people thought that Albini was the man after beating Timothy Johnson because we knew how tough Johnson was, and he clubbed him with a big shot. You look at his previous record, and he had big knockouts, but he's lost to guys like Alberto Uda, UFC veteran, who fought at 185 pounds previous in his career. So young guy, big frame, doesn't really know how to use it yet. His legs are gigantic, like his thighs, gigantic. His upper body's got a weird shape to it and a little tiny head on him. So he's not
a pear. He's a walking pear.
He's basically a walking pear. I see that if this is just a straight up kickboxing match the entire time, that he's gonna lose. Biggie Boy will beat him by decision.
But he's gonna be
Biggie Boy has such a terrible ground game that it only literally takes him catching one single kick in the fight, hitting the ground for him to just automatically lose that round. So this is what I'm going with. It's a tricky one. And I'm going to go with this. You know what? I said don't sweat the little things when we talked about the new year, but I'm going to go with tinfoil hat theory. If Albini's minus 120, Yair is plus 100. So it's an even money fight, right? $8,100 both sides. It's an even money fight. Take this into consideration, right? Albini needs the takedown, and we don't know if he's going to get it. And Biggie Boy needs to keep this fight staying the whole time. We don't know if he's going to be able to do that. So what are we going to go based off? We're going to go based off the fact that this guy's taking the fight on short notice. Not really known for big cardio because he's had so many knockouts in his career. Has now got to fly all the way to Brazil and take on Junior Albini. That's a lot going against him. Whereas if you're Albini, you were scheduled to have a fight, all those things. But here's the big X factor I'm going to go with. This guy trains himself in Suriname. He has his own gym. He's his own coach. There's not big dudes there, so he touches them and they go down. He is, again, not a world kickboxing champion. Glory never signed this guy. Lion Fight never signed this guy. No, big kickboxing promotion ever signed this guy. He just quietly toiled away and did his own thing. Ryzen signed him because he's a giant black guy who looks and fits the part. It's a great look. They like that. It's the next Bob Sapp, only he's a much better fighter than Bob Sapp. And he goes out and he wins a split decision. UFC now signs him on short notice to take on Albini. Albini doesn't train himself. He's at American Top Team full-time. He's got better training partners than this guy is. So he's got to go for the takedown. But I'm going to say, give me the guy with a full camp who actually goes to a camp instead of the guy taking the fight on short notice, training himself full-time, training himself on short notice for this one, and he's got to fly all the way to Brazil and take on Albini. Like, there's a lot working against him. The short notice thing might be the biggest one. The training, probably the second biggest thing. If it's close fight and that's what it is, it's 50-50, that's enough to persuade me on Albini. But yeah, you're right. Pretty untrustworthy guy if you look at his recent history.
We have Geraldo de Freitas taking on Felipe Colares in the cranberry sauce fight of the night. Maybe people in Brazil care about, but I imagine most people do not. De Freitas is 8,400 minus 130 favorite. Colares is 7,800 and plus 110. Colares is actually the guy who's actually fought at featherweight for most of his fights, whereas De Freitas is a bantamweight, listed as a bantamweight, at least on Tapology. And he's the favorite here. Watching tape, I was watching some tape with Chad before he showed up here, and I was just like, I don't know. I just don't know. Watching both of them, like Colares looked like he had some really good ground control when he got on top, was able to kind of lay it onto this, I forget what the name of his opponent was able to like maintain position from top and just smash away. So I was pretty impressed by that. Whereas De Freitas, I saw like he had a decent entry for his takedown, but I want to see these guys on the scales, to be perfectly honest, because if there's a big size difference between the two of them, if there's like one,
there won't be
We'll
because
see.
I think they're both the exact same size, 5'9", which is big for bantamweight, which is okay for featherweight.
I'm thinking about like the thickness of the two of them. Like because the one guy has fought at bantamweight. The other guy is primarily a featherweight. That could just mean the one guy just doesn't cut weight. But what I'm saying is I want to see these guys before I really consolidate a pick, because I saw the best part of De Freitas' game that I saw was like his entry to his double and then trying to maintain top control. But Colares looks stronger in those positions against the opponents that I had watched on tape. So if there's a slight size advantage for Colares, he will definitely be a dog. Not that I will bet, but consider adding to my player pool on DraftKings.
Yeah. This is a classic showdown. It has no business being on a UFC card, but the UFC card is the only place that can host something of this magnitude for Brazilian fans, which is it's the Shudo champion against the Jungle Fights champion. That's a big deal to them. But it's actually the Shudo 35 champ against the Jungle Fights 45-pound champ. And I'm on the same page as you. Again, there's very limited resources to go and watch this stuff. Even if you want to go watch the Shudo library on Fight Pass, it doesn't even have it. Like they cut it off at a certain time, whatever.
Yeah, no, I was watching one of DeFreitas' fights. It was just like, it was just like, it was a 15-minute fight cut into like a 4-minute highlight. And it was just like, he's on the ground. How did he get it to the ground? Like,
you know what? It shows you, I know exactly what you're talking about because I've obviously watched it as well. That's how you do tape study. But it's like they took all the best moments. And it's like, shit, those are the best moments? Like, very hard to get behind. But what I'm going here with Corrales is that Corrales seems... I'll give you my next, and we'll talk about the next fights, but I'll give you my next 3 picks all in one go, basically. If you're going to take on a middling Brazilian opponent and you know how to grapple and you got a little bit of size, maybe, not necessarily the size, but you're just a better grappler, I'll take you. And in the case of Said Nurmagomedov and Magomed BIBULATOV, they're taking on middling Brazilian opponents. They're going to have the wrestling advantage. They're going to take these guys down. That's what I need Corrales to do, and that's what I expect Corrales to do. Corrales is the kind of guy that, like, his wrestling's not very good, but he's got a willingness to wrestle. So he'll just keep trying. And, you know, I don't want to call him a chain wrestler because he's not really that good, and you got to be pretty good to chain wrestle. But, again, it's just that he'll keep on you. And I think if you're good, if he goes out with that same game plan, and he's the bigger man, which we expect him to be because he's the natural 45er, that style is what you're going to need. Now, what he's going to give up is speed, and he's going to give up a little bit in the striking department, and it's more than likely a stay-away fight that you should have no part in. But if they told you that one guy was one of the top unsigned 35ers in the country taking on one of the top unsigned 45ers in the country, then naturally you're going to go with the 45er, and in this case, you're going to go with the better grappler, which appears to be Corrales on tape. So I don't love it, but I'll take it. The fact that he's plus 110, like for the dog money, in on that. The $1,700, don't really want no part of it. Just don't know enough, as much as I'd like to know.
Said Nurmagomedov taking on Ricardo Ramos. Said is 8,200, but he's a plus 120 underdog as of now. And Ricardo Ramos is 8,000 and minus 140. Earlier in the week, like when the lines were first released, and Ramos was the underdog. And you know how much, hey, it's your boy.
It's your boy.
It's your boy who loves the Nurmagomedov.
You're an honorary member.
I was picking Ramos. And I still think if you force me to, I am picking him. But now I'm troubled in terms of like playing him on DraftKings. So I actually think if this goes in Nurmagomedov's way, and we saw Ramos over like years ago when he was definitely a little bit more green, just like he's so wild. He loves getting
he's
scrambled.
Still kind of like that, but he's getting way better.
He's getting way better. He's getting more technical, but like he was super wild. And being wild like that against a member of this family can get you in a lot of trouble because they will take that wildness and just control it and put you in your place and stay on top. Ricardo Ramos is trending right now to be like the stone cold chalk on DraftKings. And I don't know, unless he gets an early finish, which he is capable of doing. He's a bit of a maniac. When if you want to talk about killer instinct, like this guy's got it. You watch some of his earlier, like his legacy fights and stuff like that on his way up.
Potent finisher, yeah,
100%.
Even if he's not finishing you at the UFC level, he is going for it the entire time. In the case of Aim Zahabi, woohoo, that was one of the runners-up of KO of the year.
Is he gonna be able to finish Said though?
If he nails a spinning back elbow, sure. But no. I'll tell you the big thing that he'll have going with him here is that Said's going to probably want to take him down. Said's going to definitely want to play that outside kick game, try to play the range game, try to be a little more cage savvy. And again, like I said, sprinkle in that takedown, get that takedown. That's going to be a lot harder considering Said's a natural 125er. 125 so like iffy right now that he's jumping up and taking on Ramos, who's like a pretty long rangey 35er.
Yeah.
He kind of reminds me of
but if he's gonna wrestle, that may help him as well, because he's gonna have lower hips, he's gonna be able to get to those hips.
Yeah, but you know what? This guy reminds me a lot of like Thomas Almeida, or you know, in some senses, he's actually a lot like Charles Oliveira, you know, like he's long, he's rangy, his boxing game's better than Said. His submission game's better than Saeed, and he just goes for the submission at all times. He seems to have a little bit bigger heart than Charles, but he's just not as effective as Charles. And there's the issue, is that in his UFC run so far, he's 3-0, but I'll play the pessimist on this. His fight with Tanaka, why would you not just go and try to get the fight to the ground? What are you doing? Okay, whatever. It is what it is. His fight with Ayman Zahabi, he threw that spinning back elbow about half a dozen times. In fact, he threw that spinning back elbow about 10 seconds before Ayman Zahabi ran straight in to his spinning back elbow. Yeah. He was tiring at that point. Zahabi's working his way in. I had it 1-1. If Zahabi would have won that, obviously. He won the first. He kind of faded a little bit in the second. He lands the big elbow. Okay, and then his last fight against Mr. Perfect, could have gone either way, but like you could make an argument that he lost that fight against, I don't really know how to pronounce the name, Kwang Ho Kang.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like
Mr. Perfect.
Mr. Perfect, yeah, the Korean fighter, super strong. But you see, like he's having trouble with strong wrestlers, and he's having trouble with guys that are going to be able to take him into those deeper waters, and that's what Saeed's going to bring to him. Again, Saeed's going to have the wrestling advantage. He's going to be the faster guy, being the natural 125er, and he's not as flat-footed as his opponent Ramos here. So I think he's just going to stay to the outside long enough, kick at him, rally up points, tally them up, and eventually get this fight to the ground. And when he does get the fight to the ground, yeah, deal with he's going to have slick hips, he's going to throw up triangles, he's going to throw up arm bars, he's going to try to move, but like this is a family member of Khabib. Like, do you not think this man is prepared to just ride this motherfucker like a bicycle for 15 minutes? Like, he will. The last thing is, a lot of people are saying they thought Saeed lost his last fight against Justin Scoggins and didn't look overly great. Like, Justin Scoggins is an apple pie shitter, but he's a tough son of a bitch. And I don't care that he barely scraped by Scoggins. He made his UFC debut against an ultra talented guy in Scoggins who poses a lot more threats than Ricardo Ramos. The only one thing is, the size could be a big thing. So if you're watching this late, and you might be because we're going to probably release it somewhat late, apologize for that, watch the weigh-ins. Get a good read on this one, because this is the type of fight that size could matter.
Size always matters.
That's not true.
It's the motion of the ocean.
It's the motion of the ocean.
We got Magomed Bibulatov taking on Rogerio Bontorin. Bibulatov 9,400. He's the most expensive guy in the card. 9,400 minus 470. Bontorin is 6,800 plus 375. Bibulatov. The one question that we really do have about this guy is his durability, his chin. We saw John Moraes absolutely nuke this guy. But like, if that doesn't happen, like Bibulatov gets takedowns, secures takedowns. Like, he's doing all the right things that you want from a guy that you're paying up for in this spot. It's whether Rogerio has anything for him. And I don't know very much about this Bontorin guy yet. I don't know if you do, if you've got your research in, because I'm a little lost on this. But yeah, Bibulatov, like, if he loses early, you're screwed. Like, your whole night is over if you have Bibulatov on your lineups. Like, it's done. Yeah,
I'm just a little puzzled as to the matchmaking on it, being that you're probably going to get rid of 25. Bibulatov, not going to be a good 35er. You're probably going to release this man at some point. So you drag him all the way to Brazil and give him a local up-and-comer that you owe a fight to, I guess, because of Dana White's Contender Series. Like, who goes from Dana White's Contender Series to taking on a man that, prior to losing to John Moraga, was ranked number 5 in the world and is the former World Series of Fighting champion? Like, that's a big-ass task to jump up. Could he get clipped? That's the big question. We saw John Moraga knock him out. John Moraga likes to throw heavy, so let's not discredit his punching power. But yeah, the way he got caught and the way he got knocked out, it's a little food for thought that he's not an undestructible Russian. That was his first pro loss, so up until that point, he had looked pretty unbeatable and was undefeated. So it's a big rude awakening, so to speak. But he's got all the tools in the world to beat up Bontorin. Here's the thing that I really look at when I look at Rogerio Bontorin, is that he's a very exciting fighter. But you look at his run, his entire career, right? Fights some bums early, then he gets going. You know, around a couple years ago, he is on a 12-fight winning streak. He is just plowing through guys on the Brazilian regional scene. He's another one of these fighters where we looked at Toledo Santos. It's like the record was ballooned up. Then he fights Michinori Tanaka. A UFC veteran with a little bit of grappling chops, and that's all you needed to beat him. Was you could take him down. He submitted him in the 3rd round with a sleeper choke of all things. And BONTORIN rebounded with a pair of wins. He won one, then he got into Dana White's Contender Series. So he's on a 2-fight winning streak since the Tanaka loss. But the Tanaka was really the only guy that went out there and was like, I'm just going to take him down and beat him. You could be
what Bibulatov's coming here to do.
That is 100% what Bibulatov is going to do. And I hear the argument that people say, this kid is a potent finisher. He doesn't look bad. You watch tape on him, doesn't look bad. He's a potent finisher. If Bibulatov can't take that punch anymore, he's going to pose a problem for him. But there's a huge difference between fighting nobody scrubs on the Brazilian scene and beating them and then jumping up to a world-class level. John Moraga wasn't a bum that knocked him out. He's a former world title challenger.
Yep.
He's a perennial gatekeeper in the division. He's a very tough guy. So, again, I always say it, there's levels of this shit, and this kid's jumping right into the fire against a guy that he was 14-0 prior to a slip-up in his last. So I'm not going to bank on him getting caught again. I do think Bibulatov just uses his takedown game to control it. That is such a huge price tag. He can get complacent in fights at times and just go through the motion. He did against Janelle Losa. He did against Donovan Freelo. He just does it from time to time. So I don't want the 9,400 if he's just going to take him down and control him. The 470, geez, 5-1 for a guy that just got blasted by Moraga in a minute and a half. I think he's going to win. I'd play him for 250. I'd be thinking about it for as much as 325. But anything deeper than that, no fucking chance. And 470 is most definitely deeper than that.
Before we get out of here, I got to remind people that odds and lines are subject to change. See a website for actual odds. If you or anybody you know has a gambling problem, wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And that more or less wraps it up for us this week. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to say, I got to hit the road, but the final thoughts are, who is your favorite Brazilian fighter? DK handle, like of the show. You get some DK bucks. Let us know that. And join the Ironman MMA League. Honestly, good time. Gives you a chance to get involved with not only just
it's
us.
$100 for the season. Like, that's a pretty good investment. When
and
you
it's not all sharps or anything. That's like, this is fun. It's a good way to keep up with it. It's a good way to get info, meet new people. It'll be a fun time. So I do encourage it.
Yeah, and you can come and take mine, Cody's money.
That's right. So till the next time, Paul.
I look forward to running this team with you. Anyway, for Cody and our main man, Chad, I am Paul. Saying goodbye and good luck.
Mayo experience! Experience!